All right, guys, today we're going to talk about blacking out the windows, putting the cedar planks on the ceiling, and running some PEX line. It's been a crazy week, very warm, heat wave all across North America. Let's get it going. This is episode 6, and I hope you enjoyed the intro.
Ride across this country into the starlight. 12,000 miles, turn back, do it again. No destination, it's just a journey. You were my lover and friend.
Duck, 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 goose. Oh. Kidding, we're just sitting down. Day 1, time to set up the shop in week 6. Day 1 of week 6, that is. I feel like I'm a broken record on repeat, but here we go.
Our shop is finally set up.
Yeah.
10 out of 10. Ready to go.
That's a high rating that you gave yourself.
5 stars.
So, it's pretty solid.
We have a table saw. We have a spot for all of our plywood. We have a table. We have a toolbox. We have all of that close to the bus, so we're not running back and forth all the time. It looks really good, and we have proper lighting, and it's a really creative and clean and cohesive space for us to just create in. The first thing that we did this week was black out the windows that will be covered by walls in our final layout. One of the windows will be the back of a closet, the other one the back of the bathroom wall, and the other one is the headboard. So if you're going to be covering windows with walls, you want to black them out in some way. Some people use tints or some sort of adhesive film. We choose to use spray paint because we have done tints and things in the past, and sometimes even just the corner will peel up and it'll try to peel off, whereas we haven't had that experience with spray paint. So we like to just paint the window no matter how cringy it feels to paint a window.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that. Certainly the first time we did it, was like, no, the window's so nice. But as long as you get the right paint that adheres to the glass and you don't chip it in the process, you should be set on that for a long, long time. I don't think you're going to have any issues with that coming off.
We used a flat black spray paint, and the first thing was to just clean the window and then tape around plastic sheeting, kind of like a barrier in between your other windows and your floor and your ceiling, because spray paint gets everywhere. So we basically just surrounded it in plastic sheeting and tape and all this stuff, and then spray painted the window, let it dry, filled in any gaps, and repeated that for all 3 sections. This week we only got the blacking out of the windows done, but next week we will be leaving a little air gap, insulating over the window, and putting the walls up. Some of the walls, not all of them, because we still have electrical to run and a little bit more plumbing to finish, but we are going to start on those walls next week, so that'll be coming up.
Next up was running our preliminary PEX lines for our fresh water system. We won't be doing the full system quite yet, as with a lot of things in the bus, sometimes you have to do part of a step to move on to a different step of a different process before you can then do that. So we're just preparing for some walls to be able to go up, and these lines will be behind the walls, so we needed to get them in there. So really all we had to do was measure length of the bus for both cold and hot water, the width, and then the turns back to the water tank system and the sink and all that, and we just laid them out. We put all the cinch clamps on. We haven't cinched them permanently yet, but we will be doing that probably next week as well. And we should be doing most of our freshwater install next week.
Yeah, we should be completing the full water system minus the sink and faucets and shower head, but the hot water heater, the water pump, all those things connected to the freshwater tank, the intake, that'll all be next week. So this is just preparing for that install. We do have our hot water heater but we're waiting for next week for the full thing because we don't have all those components yet. That's why this series is a little bit difficult because you have to complete one step to complete another, and so we're just working through as best we can.
So I got a little surprise wonky hula hoop for Savannah. Let's see if she can. First, let's see if she thinks, and let's see if she can actually hula hoop it. Savannah, I made you a hula hoop.
What'd you do?
I made you a hula hoop. I only had elbows, no coupling ones, so it's a little bit wonky there.
I'm supposed to hula hoop this?
Yeah, good luck.
Look at it.
You said you could hula hoop anything.
Alright.
She talks a big hula hoop game. We'll see. That's like a water droplet shape.
Yeah, this is weird.
Oh, snap.
It's going. It went for a while. That's not hula hooping.
That's how I hula hoop.
Now he won't stop hula hooping.
I'm hulaing. I'm doing it.
Are you hooping?
Most hulas I've ever hooped.
The biggest thing that we accomplished this week, and one of the most exciting so far in the whole build, is our cedar plank ceiling and hooking up our puck lights. So we now have lights in the bus, and putting in this ceiling makes the bus look like a home. It looks so real. The change, like, you can just feel it when you walk in there. Not only does it smell good from the cedar, but it looks like it's really coming together, even though the walls are still bare. In our bus, we did the ceiling way down the line after all the cabinets were up and everything was built, but we wished we had done it sooner, because we had to go back in and line all of our upper cabinets with 1/4 inch, and it was a horrible job. I hated it. It was a bunch of weird, funky, specific cuts, and we wanted to avoid that altogether this time. So we wanted to do the ceiling really early on. Now, when we build our upper cabinets and our closets, they will already be lined with the cedar ceiling, and we won't have to worry about it.
Yeah, in addition to that, it saves you a lot of hassle with having to cut a lot of special boards to accommodate the cupboards and everything. Like, we even had to strip down very thin pieces to fit right next to the face because, of course, the boards didn't end up finishing right there. And some of those were actually really tough to slide in. You end up having to slide them in as opposed to click them in. So as far as we can tell, that made that part a lot easier, just covering one big rectangle that you then build on top of.
We needed to know how far our cabinets were coming off of the wall so that we could mount disc magnets into our ceiling. So we know that measurement. We measured out from the wall, made sure everything was square, marked it, and ran a piece of painter's tape along that whole line. And this is a system that we designed when we did our bus, and we call it the invisible projector and projector screen mounting system.
Very nice. Quick name.
Flows right off the tongue.
Yeah.
We designed the system and wrote it up into a downloadable plan, and that's on our website. We will link that below because that plan will tell you exactly how we did all of this with our ceiling, and it will also give you the links for the magnets. We already figured out how strong the magnets need to be to go through the 1/4 inch planks, so we did all that work for you. To install these magnets in the ceiling, we first had to make a little frame around each magnet, and that's so it doesn't slide around when you're driving within your ceiling. It has to stay in place. These frames get glued to the back side of your ceiling, then nothing slides around, everything stays in place. We had to figure out where to place these magnets, and to do that, we physically took our screen and projector into the new bus, held it up in both of the mounting spots, and made sure that the projection wasn't too big or too small on the screen. You hold them up, you mark where the magnets go with a Sharpie on your insulation. Then, when you're installing your planks, you know exactly where everything goes.
Correct. That part's slightly stressful. You gotta be pretty precise, but it can be done. The really nice feature about this is you can put the screen wherever you want it, or you can have multiple positions where you could grab your screen and put it. We have a few in our bus, and there's going to be 2 in this one. So if you wanted it different spots, Wherever you want it, you can put it. And that's the really cool thing about it.
It's fully customizable no matter where you want the screen and projector in your own bus. You can place them wherever you want. So we picked 2 spots in this bus. We have 3 in our bus and we don't really use the third one. So we just decided to go with the 2 that we like the best.
We then proceeded to prepare for our puck lights. So we picked the spots we wanted them. It's a good idea to maybe measure off the center line or equal distance apart in the width so they're lined up properly with each other. Just mark those on your ceiling insulation. So when you get there with the boards, you know which boards have to have the holes drilled in them for the puck lights, and everything is even and looks really nice. And after that, you can then begin your planks. We found, I think probably by chance with the first bus, that if you put right on the center line, 1 and 1, it works out perfect with these vent fans that it just goes around it, so you don't have to do any crazy cuts. It's pretty awesome that the measurement works out that way.
Yeah, a few of the boards fit the length of the vent fan, and then one board just fits cleanly on each side. You don't have to cut around the vent fan. If you just put that first seam on the center line, one on one side, one on the other, and then you work out from there. Then we moved on to doing the full ceiling install. And you want to stagger the beginnings of each of your run of boards, and that's so that your seams don't all fall in the same place. We like to have staggered seams so that they integrate into the pattern a little bit better. We used construction adhesive, and we would put that on a small section of the furring strip before we press the board up. These are tongue and groove planks. We used 1/4-inch cedar, and we'll link those planks in the description below because we really like them. So you would click them into place, push them up on the adhesive, and we used an air gun with just small little brad nails and would shoot those into the board. In general, a good rule is to not use nails in a vehicle, and that's because of vibration. Because when you're driving, nails will work themselves out of the hole with the vibration. But when we do use nails, it's in situations like this when we're also using a really strong adhesive. So that'll hold the nail in a little bit better, but also the nails are just in there to basically hold the plank up while the adhesive dries. As you're going along and installing these planks, remember to think about where you placed your lights and your magnets.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get going and you're gluing and you're nailing and you're locking them all in, and you forget all about those little circles you traced on your insulation. So be thinking about that, remember it as you go along, and cut the holes, insert the magnets as you go along, otherwise you'll be ripping boards back out.
Yeah, or you'll be drilling into the ceiling after because maybe you forgot to do one while you were putting
We did that. We forgot to do one puck light.
I just want to say that, like, there's so many mistakes to be made, and I know it's, like, overwhelming when it happens and people get really frustrated by it. We do, too. We make plenty of little mistakes. We've made less and less the more we've done this stuff, but just don't get discouraged by it. Everyone does it. You're going to be doing some processes 2 and 3 times. Even just cutting the holes for the puck lights, I measured everything right, measured the distance to the hole, and then I get it in and like, oh, I didn't account for what side the tongue was supposed to be on, or I had it upside down. So I lost a couple boards doing that. And when you have that many things going in your head, you got to definitely take your time. So
this is a complicated process. This ceiling involves so many steps, so much precision with your magnet placement, your light placement, thinking about it as you're going while also making sure everything's clicked and locked and in place. Just think about it as you're going. If you make mistakes, it's not a big deal to have to rip a board or 2 down. But you can't rip boards out of the middle because they're tongue and groove. So make your mistakes on the edges, and hopefully you think about it before you get too far in.
So once we got to the planks that needed the holes cut for the puck lights, we measured to the center point of the board and the distance where they needed to be, marked it, took it out to our work table, and got our hole saw. Really important point here when you're doing any hole saw stuff with particularly finishing pieces like cabinet faces or your ceiling planks, start on one side of the plank, go about halfway in, and then flip the board and go the other way. This will prevent any blowout where you start getting those little slivers of wood stripping back, which would not look good at all. So as long as you do half and half and flip it, it's gonna get a nice smooth look and you're gonna be happy with it. Another very important point to remember is to run your wire as you go, because you could easily forget both to drill the holes for the lights and to run the wire, get your ceiling done. It gets amazing. I have no lights and no way to get in there and no way to get a wire in there. So as you're going, make sure you're getting the holes cut. We use 16 gauge stranded wire for our puck lights. Make sure to remember to use stranded wire. If you use solid, it could potentially break from vibration and stuff like that of a vehicle, and it could snap, and it's just one solid wire, whereas the strand is a bunch of little wires and they're more pliable. This is generally what is used in any sort of automotive application.
We put all of our magnets in the ceiling where we marked. All of the holes were cut for our puck lights. Our 12-volt line was run and pulled through all the little holes. So we finished all the planks, and our ceiling, the actual boards of the ceiling, was finished. So it was time to move on to wiring in each individual puck light, and you went around and wired each one into the 12-volt line. Then we cut the interior vent fan trim to the depth that our ceiling needed, because with the Fantastic Fan, it comes with an interior trim piece, but it's really, really tall. You have to cut those to the depth of your ceiling, and the vent fan that is closest to our driver's seat, it had one final rebellious moment.
Oh, yeah.
That front area of the roof that we've been talking about that has been the problem of the whole build thus far had one little extra moment of frustration for us, where the vent fan cover, the interior trim piece, had to be cut on an angle because the roof was angled. But now we've beat the front roof area. We've overcome. We are done with it.
Next was a very exciting part. The first time you get to turn those lights on and you connect to the wires, make sure everything's wired correctly. If you have like a little power source, whether it just be another 12-volt battery kicking around, you can use that. It's such a low watt draw that you can use that for a long time. I use it to test like the fans and the vents along the way. But you connect your wires and bam, lights come on.
I feel like I'm smiling so much because those lights coming on for the first time is one of my favorite moments of the whole build.
You're like, it's glorious.
It's because the ceiling, the planks are beautiful. Then the lights are inset into those boards and they shine down and they look so beautiful. It makes the space look really homey and warm. And it's one of my favorite moments. I feel like I'm smiling so much talking about it.
It's exciting. It's cool. And from a practical standpoint, if you do get those lights up and running early on in the build, it makes it a lot easier when you're doing work in there. Of course, we're going to have some can lights still, and those get the job done, but you get lots of big shadows with those, or lights in your face when you're turning. If you can get your ceiling lights done relatively early, it actually makes it a lot easier just to see what you're doing when you start getting into more of the woodworking and that sort of stuff.
The last thing we had to do was test the magnets that we put into the ceiling. So again, we brought our screen and projector into the bus and we hung it up in both of the spots that we embedded the magnets into. and everything looked great.
Yeah.
It was really cohesive. The projection wasn't too big. It wasn't too small. There's a little bit of wiggle room with the magnets as far as where to place the projector or the
Right.
screen. The screen magnets will move side to side on the actual screen.
The screen, yeah.
And the screen that we use is linked in our downloadable plan. That's linked in the description below, so you can check that out. And we popped both those up on the ceiling, checked them out. We did good. As you said, it is a little nerve-wracking because once those are in the ceiling, they're in there. They're done.
Yeah, there's
you
really
can't
nothing
move
you can
them.
do about it. And I don't know, you just got to figure out your screen size. Like ours is a bit bigger than what's going in this bus. So it looks, like, why is that screen so big? But we'll get the appropriate size for this bus that'll make it look just perfect. So I figure those things out and you're ready to go.
Now, our ceiling was totally installed. Our puck lights were tested. They're good to go. Our magnets were good. And the ceiling is completely done.
Yeah, and these big, visually changing moments, you have a few of them along the way, are always pretty exciting. It makes you feel like you're making a lot of progress. So it's fun to see when the surface changed so much. You feel like, okay, we're getting somewhere.
Week 6 in the books.
In the books.
We're done with week 6. This is crazy.
Yeah.
The ceiling is done, which feels weird because we did it so late in our build, and we're changing things up and making better choices with this build.
Yeah, little tweaks as you learn the process, and that's how it goes. So it's pretty exciting to see that up there, and feels like we're moving along.
Like always, we have a lot planned for next week. We are moving forward, full steam ahead. Many of you guys have asked. We're hoping to have this build done by mid-September, so we will have more details about its sale then. So don't contact us about it quite yet. We will let you know when that time comes, but we are working through the steps. Big plans for next week. Like always, do all those things you do on the internet, and we'll see you next time.
Catch you on the flip.